And of course, we'll play some fantastic tunes on the programme this morning, not necessarily Slayer, which we'll explain in just a moment. OK, Hull's LGBT, that's lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgendered Christian Fellowship, are throwing open their doors to St Ninian's Church on Chantlands Avenue in Hull today. It's the first time they've issued a public invitation for people to come along and openly discuss Christian attitudes to the LGBT community, both within and beyond the church walls. Special guest is Manchester-based Church of England vicar, poet and musician, the Reverend Rachel Mann, a trans woman, gay, feminist priest who at the moment features on Radio 2's midweek overnight pause for thought. Rachel, first of all, Radio 2, I'm very impressed.
Oh, goodness me. Well, so you should be, Neil. Goodness me.
I've never been on Radio 2. I'd love to. I could do a better job.
I'll have a word.
Can I do pause for thought?
Well, how religious are you, Neil? That's the thing.
It's possibly not the moment to discuss that.
Right, okay.
Possibly more than you might expect, actually.
Oh.
Yeah. I know where my local church is. That's not the end. That's not. I'm making this sound bad. Honestly, I do know the inside of my local church.
Smashing.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's very impressive.
I'm pleased. You're pleased. And here with Rachel is Lucy Gorman, who set up the Hull group some time ago. Morning to you, Lucy.
Morning.
You've heard of Slayer, and I haven't, and.
Yeah, I've heard of them. I don't know what they play or anything, so, I'm one step above you.
Let me just explain. When Rachel and Lucy sat in the studio, I said to Rachel, if you had a choice of what to play, you'd say Slayer. I've never even heard of them.
I just find that disappointing, embarrassing, humiliating. You're not 17, Neil. You're not old, but you're not 17, and I thought you'd know a band like Slayer.
Slayer? I've heard of Slade. Not Slayer.
Yeah, it's not. Slayer aren't Slade with added...
Come on, feel the noise. They don't do that one, do they? Anyway, let's get to the matter of hand. Lucy, you spoke to us for the paper review a few weeks ago when the first official gay weddings were taking place. Has there been any fallout in terms of focus for the whole group on gay marriage issues within the church?
Not necessarily within the group. We're all kind of a similar opinion that we would all kind of love at some point to get married within the Church of England. That's the problem at the moment, that we still can't get married in the Church of England. Obviously thrilled that it is law, and those people who are arguing against or don't believe that it's right are now arguing against the law. So, brilliant as far as I'm concerned.
Rachel, there's a huge background to the debate about whether same-sex marriage should receive the blessing, if you like, from the church. For those like me that don't know, is it in your view still a black and white issue for many in the church, or is the waters muddy on this one?
I think it's incredibly muddy. My experience is that on the ground, in terms of very many congregations, there's a huge desire to affirm gay relationships, to see that those relationships are celebrated in public. The real challenge, in my view, is regarding what might be called the hierarchy.
Yeah.
The bishops recently issued a statement effectively saying this is what the church believes about gay marriage and that it's not acceptable. The thing about the Church of England particularly is that it's a very, very diverse, mixed group, and there is no such thing as the church, the voice of the church. But the bishops sometimes, I'm going to get into trouble for saying this, but the bishops sometimes would like to think that they just represent the standard view. The reality on the ground is quite different.
I like the idea of the thought that you think you're going to be in trouble. I don't think so. I think they're going to be quite tolerant of your...
There's a sense in which, when I say in trouble, there are people who get annoyed by me pointing out that the bishops don't represent the wider views of the church. I'm not going to be in trouble in the sense that I'm going to lose my job.
No.
I'm allowed to hold an opinion.
Yeah, of course.
And that's part of what being a vicar is being gobby.
Yeah. I'm starting to realise, Lucy, why you've invited Rachel to this meeting today.
She's brilliant, isn't she?
If you wanted an opinion, you're going to get one.
Yeah, you definitely are. And I think one of the things that is so important as well is that it's often kind of passed back to vicars or bishops or anyone kind of within a position of power within the church to kind of say something about it. And so many people sit on the fence because they don't want to get in trouble, or they don't want to have any backlash. And it is so important that if this is something you truly believe in, that you stand up for it and you say something, and that's just so important.
Can you at least can you at least sort of take on board that some people have a while getting their head around this, that marriage, in most people's or many people's heads for most of the last 2,000 years has been a male-female thing, and that the change in the concept, as it were, is for some people a little difficult to get their head around.
Yeah, and I do totally understand it, because when you've been brought up with something and a belief, and that is not in inverted commas the norm for you, I completely understand that it takes a long time to kind of come round to a different way of thinking and changing your attitudes. But I think the point is, I'm more than happy to have conversations with people who don't agree with my theological stance. That's fine, and I'm never going to shut them down or shut them off, because at the end of the day that's not going to do anything. But to have kind of that constant dialogue about, this is what I think, this is how I feel, this is my life, and kind of what's your opinion on that, that's how you change things. And that's, as a group, that's what we aim to do, and by opening the doors today, that's what we're hoping to achieve.
Rachel, we've just met, and as an intelligent person, you can understand why this is surely a difficult issue for the church as well. Do you accept that as well?
Absolutely. I mean, what I do understand, as someone who works professionally in a church setting, has been part of the church for most of my adult life, is how, and I'm going to use that awful J word, the journey word, that in order for us to get from A to B to C, for any of us, we have to take steps along the way. And that there are certain kinds of stories within the church which say, marriage is for men and women, or that stories which say that women can't operate in leadership roles. But I think what we discover is that over time, it is possible for both the church to catch up with society, but also sometimes society to catch up with the church. I mean, the classic example of that is around slavery. The church was in the vanguard in the late 18th century in changing attitudes around slavery. Now, we would consider it inconceivable to call ourselves Christians and say slavery is cool or okay, or hold slaves. In the 18th century, it was entirely normal. So time is a great changer. Conversation can be a great changer, but actually often it's about a way of seeing. It's like a switch flipping, and suddenly you can't see the world in quite the same way again.
You're not most people's idea of a Christian leader. Would you say that? Do you wear that badge with honour?
Well, say that again. Am I the idea of?
Are you? You're not most people's idea of a reverend, shall we say?
I mean, I guess the thing is...
Do you revel in that? Do you like being...
I always feel that God calls every one of us to be ourselves.
Yeah.
And that brings with it distinctiveness. I think the danger is sometimes is that, particularly if you're in a position of church leadership, that you're supposed to be, bland, edgeless, amorphous. And actually, it seems to me that Jesus Christ himself, who's, my hero, my guide, etc., my God, was precisely not about being a blandee, someone who just fits in and being neat and nice. He's someone who had something to say, and he blooming well got on and said it.
And do you think he'd like you playing the guitar? Do you think, the heavy metal guitar, do you think Jesus would be up there on the stage with you?
Well, I like to feel he'd be up there on stage playing heavy metal, but, the thing is everybody thinks that Jesus would be up on stage playing, some sort of kumbaya folk guitar, but, I just don't think he'd be doing that.
I don't think so either. I don't know. I agree with you. I think he'd be into Slayer. We're going to have to play some, aren't we, at some point?
Are you?
No.
That would be a bold move for BBC Radio Humberside during the day, I think.
I'm not staff anymore. I could do what I like. But the last time I do it, but... So, the event this afternoon at St Ninian's, what can people expect?
Well, Rachel's going to be kind of telling her story a little bit. She's kind of published a few books as well, which I'm hoping she's going to go into. I'll give you a brief rundown of where the LGBT Christian Fellowship came from, and just wherever you are along the journey of either your sexuality or your faith or your theology, is to come along and just meet a few people and have some chat, ask some questions if you want to, or just sit and listen and take it all in.
So, I mean, I imagine one of the missions for you today is to fill the void of people's maybe lack of awareness and lack of understanding, lack of the issues. And I imagine you were expecting some awkward questions.
I think I'd like some awkward questions, because that opens it up a little bit, makes it a little bit more exciting.
Yeah.
So if you've got an awkward question, then get yourself down to St Ninian's at 2:00.
Excellent. That's the call to arms. Thank you very much for coming in, the pair of you.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you.
Great to talk to you, Lucy and Rachel, who have been my guests this morning. This is BBC Radio Humberside. Here's Slayer. Oh no, it's the Ronettes.